We got like 4 minutes still, so I'll wait till other people get in and it starts. But glad to see y'all here. And this will be the last time we do this crap. We'll be back in real person classes in the library lecture hall 2 starting Tuesday for sure. Sorry, my microphone is muted. I was saying I just got an email from saying if we had class, and like it's right here, right now. So it is here and now. And the rules for Radicals PDF is right up in the chat. If you open the chat, the little looks like the little word bubble that comes out of your mouth if you're a cartoon comic or in a cartoon strip or a comic book. You scroll up and you'll see the link to the thread. I already have a few copies. We have how many here? We got 1 minute left, so I'll just keep waiting patiently, as difficult as it is. Hey, Jakari. Cool. Can you hear okay, Jakari? Do I need to move my mic or? Cool. Hey, Zatresia. I got your email. I replied in Canvas about the class and the questions. So I guess we'll start because it's time to start. Again, I'm sorry for having to do this via Teams. It's a pain in the butt, and it's not the same, and it's not what we signed up for. However, I'm still stranded in Colorado. My car is fixed now. The clutch is repaired and out of the shop. It was way more expensive than they said it was going to be, such as life. But I could not, with my 1-year-old, drive back to Odessa in time to be there for this meeting. So we are still in Colorado, so I could do this, and we're going to head back. All night, probably when the kid was asleep. At any rate, that will not inhibit or impact your educational experiences in a negative way as best we can help it. All right, so the policy plan worksheet, which we went over on Tuesday, right? Or I posted on Tuesday, and there was a lecture about it, right? We all know what's up with that. We've kind of done it in class, right? Everybody has their policy submitted, and I've given it the thumbs up. Anybody who's reworked it who has needed to rework it has reworked it to be some sort of a cogent statement, like not we're going to increase funding to the educational department, right? But specifically how much and why, right? So now it's time, as far as our research element goes, to start doing our evidence sheets. We've already done one as a trial run for the freaking Solzhenitsyn essay, right? This is a kind of familiarization exercise. So we'll go through that in the second half of the class for how to fill it out for the beginning of your own research for your policy project. The first half of the class, however, will be devoted, as promised, to the next bit of rules for radicals. Now, I asked you all over the weekend, which is now almost a week ago, to read the rest of the introduction of rules for radicals. Did everybody do that? Can I see some show of hands or yes or admissions of no? I hope people, it was like 14 pages maybe. So I'm going to ask questions about it, and if people aren't well versed in it, it's going to be difficult to answer the questions, especially because I can't look at y'all's guilty faces and see whether or not I should call on you. Well, let's talk about it briefly then. If someone wants to hop in, you feel free to unmute yourself and talk whenever you have something to say, or put your little hand up via the little three dots in the middle, and then there's a raised hand, like I just raised my hand apparently. Cool. I promise truth and nothing but the truth. All right. So back to rules for radicals. Let's look at if y'all have the PDF up, which you should. It's in the chat box under the meeting chat right there. If you scroll up a little bit past when Dakari joined, Solinsky rules for radicals, PDF, boom, download it, access it, whatever. So we're all doing the same thing at the same time. Yeah. So let's talk about the rest of the introduction for a second. What was after he talks about the whole, you shouldn't have a ham sandwich in your hand when you're talking to a bunch of rabbis. You shouldn't have your long surfer hair if you're in a very clean cut, like military neighborhood, right? You should make it so your rhetoric, your appearance, and your actions are not destroying your chances of making inroads with a community who could be supporting of your ideology, who wants the same changes you want, right? You shouldn't shoot yourself in the foot by being like, you know what, screw these rabbis. I like ham. Man, you can like ham, but don't eat it around him, man. Pretend you don't like it when you're around him. Otherwise, you're going to disenfranchise and alienate them, right? So what do you say after that? After the whole idea about, kind of normalizing and communicating through caring about what other people think, feel, and believe. Not changing, but curating your appearance and your words to those groups you're trying to reach, right? What's the next thing he talks about? The next point he brings up? Do I remember? I'll give you all a second now. Well, what is the point about the difference between revolution and reformation? Does anyone remember what the difference between those two things is? You can feel free to unmute yourself and shout out if you want to. Shout, what's it?
Sorry, I just joined. What did you say?
Oh, sorry. So we're talking about the rest of the introduction, right? That we're supposed to read over the weekend. And after we talk about the whole don't have long hair when you're talking to clean cut people, if they don't like it, don't have a ham sandwich in your hand when you're talking to rabbis, right? Because it's going to short circuit. You're trying to convince them and them hearing the words you have to say, right? So what is his point after that? What's the difference between a reformation and a revolution? What's he mean by that? And this is the introduction if we're unclear, and it's in the chat box as a PDF if you don't have it all in you already. So everybody find it in the chat box there?
It seems as though Reformation is more fixing what is already there, whereas revolution is, or what did you say the other choice was? Revolution?
Revolution and reformation are the two the distinctions he makes, two different things, right?
Mm.
So here it is again for everybody who didn't see it before. I'm posting it again in the chat right now. You'll see the PDF. Oh wait, I lied. Now do you see the PDF? Okay, Adrian, let me see. Right. A reformation is the exhaustion of, like Solzhenitsyn maybe says, right? A exhaustion with the status quo, a being tired of the values and the way things are aligned. Like people are disillusioned. What does disillusion mean? It's like they see the reality for the crap it really is. They're not buying the Leave It to Beaver, 2 chickens in every pot, 1 car in every driveway, 2.5 kids you're walking around, that's a disillusion. They're not happy. They're not satisfied anymore, right? A revolution, right, is whatever exists, whether you like it or not, we're going to burn the whole effing thing down, right, and then start from scratch. A reformation is longer and relies upon the tacit, at least acceptance by the people of change. A revolution is like, you could love what's going on right now. You're like, man, I love whatever happens. I love the presidency as it is because I work for Wall Street. I work for the oil company, right? And this is great. And the revolution comes and takes it down. Well, you lose everything, even stuff you like, right? That's the difference. In a reformation, nobody really cares because everything's bad enough that people are kind of like, either way, right? Everybody's kind of like had it. All right, so this is the up here, right? He's talking about as an organizer, you start from where the world is, not as you would like it to be. To accept that the world does not, in any sense, weaken our desire to change it to the world we live should be. You have to begin with the world as it is if you're going to change what you think it should be. So you have to work within the system as opposed to destroy it entirely, right? He talks about the disillusionment with income of American families. 40% of them have between $5,000 and $10,000 a year. This is back in like the 60s, right? They cannot be dismissed by labeling blue collar or a hard hat. They have to continue to be relatively passive and slightly challenging. If we fail to communicate with them, like the working class, those who have enough to get by, but like, could be having a little more. But if you have a revolution, they're probably not going to be a steel mill to go to the next day, right? That you're going to turn them off by talking about revamping the whole system if they have enough to pay their mortgage and they have enough to, buy food. So you have to find a way to get them to be on your side without telling them we're going to, burn their factory down, right? And they says the youth are impatient, right, with the way things are. So youth tend to push for revolution as opposed to reformation. But you have to have, he says, right, a reformation before you could have an effective resolution. So what do you mean by an effective revolution? What's a effective and an ineffective revolution that you could think of just in your own heads? What does he compare it to? He compares the process, right, that the youth is so impatient about to a 3-act play, right? And the youth, instead of doing the build up and the change, convincing of minds, they want to go right to the last act of Hamlet, where 9 people are lying on the stage dead. The king's been killed. The heir to the throne's been killed. There's a new king in town, right? We want to cut to the chase, right? We want change now, which we do, right? Everybody out there, anybody in the class say, nah, I prefer to just wait and see what happens. We want the bad to be over with, right? And we want the good to start right now. I do. I'm impatient as hell, right? If we want social change, we want it not tomorrow, not 2 years from now, not in the next election cycle. We want it like reality to be that way right now. He says, okay, that is a fine thing to want if you're young, right? But the thing is that it all ends up being then doing more damage to the system you need to continue to improve as opposed to it damages the system you need to improve upon, right? Just as if you have a massive rhetorical garbage about burning the system down, Yippee yells of do it, do your thing, what else? Bombs, problem with that is that until you have the Reformation, until some of the power is ceded from the state, until you have a bunch of people, maybe the majority of people on your side, your revolution is doomed because the system still has all the power and all the guns, right? So you have to have a reformation rather, to stop you from getting completely wasted and blown up in the revolution. Does that make sense? Anybody not tracking or think I'm too crazy weird? All right. Well, we'll call that. Okay, thank you, Gabriel. Or Gabriel, sorry, I keep calling you Gabriel. Gabriel, thank you. I'm freezing and lagging. Oh no. Okay, let me see what I can do to adjust that. I will. Taking my video. Well, good. People here and seeing me again. Video to make it go faster. I got booted entirely from the damn thing. Am I still lagging, folks? Or are we doing a little better? Teeny not really. Still frozen. SOBs. Okay, cameras are going off. Hopefully the audio won't be as laggy. I'm also going to take off the incoming video. Okay, a bit better. Is it better now, maybe? Still? A bit? Okay, well. Some of them we'll go with what we can get. So we're talking about, right? The necessity of a reformation before a revolution can actually take place. Okay. So, for example, the reason a reformation has to come when people are indifferent about change, indifferent about the way things are. Nobody really wants to protect the status quo things, right? Because if they did, if people liked the way things were right now, and there wasn't an ideological reformation first, when a revolution which wants to overthrow the system and change it things up, right? What's going to happen is all the government, right? All the people who have the power and have the military and the police and the firearms, right, are going to put the revolution down in a violent and unwinnable fashion. So you rely on the apathy or the not, at least the majority of the citizens, or those in the military or who have the weapons, right, to not care that much in order to have the revolution be a possibility. Are we still hearing me, or am I still cutting out? You know what I mean?
For the most part, you're okay, but you do cut out.
I'm gonna walk close to the Wi-Fi hub and see if it changes anything at all. I'm walking the hallway. All right, let's see if I have a better connection out here. All right, maybe people can see me now. Maybe can people see and hear me better now? At all? Better connection, perhaps, guys? Okay, hopefully y'all can hear me and see me now. Cool. Thank you, Caleb. That's my son. Let me see real quick. Sorry. Real quick. Since this is a thing. This is my son. My 1-year-old son, Aaron Jr. Say hey to the class, buddy. Hi. Good job. All right. Dad's got to teach him about revolution, rebelling, and overthrowing the government violently. Yeah, go on. All right. He is the cutest baby ever made. I'm convinced. And now he's upset, but he'll get over it. Sorry, dude. He likes to hang out. And I like hanging out with him. All right, I'll share pictures. He wants to run the whole dang show, right? He wants to hit the keys. He wants to, do the video chat and type stuff. And, he thinks he's already the emperor of the world, and he's not yet. All right. So he could be the Gerber baby, I think. I think he'd have a chance of actually being like the poster child Gerber baby. And there's this college scholarship for that. So I'm trying to figure out how to, maybe hire a PR agent to get him into that career track. Thanks, Gabriel. All right. So now away from lovely, cute, though kind of fussy, but amazingly adorable babies, and to bombs sniping, silence when police are killed, there's streams of murdering fascist pigs when others are killed, right? Just a little bit turn the corner there, okay? So the idea, right, is that a reformation, the changing of the ideologies of the masses, right, their disillusionment with the way things currently are, right, in the system, is necessary before you can have a complete overthrow or a change, right? So this is the quote from John Adams on page, 19 of the PDF. The revolution was effected before the wars commenced, John Adams wrote. The revolution was in the hearts and minds of the people. The radical change in the principles, opinions, sentiments, and affections of the people was the real American Revolution. A revolution without a prior reformation would collapse or become a totalitarian tyranny. A reformation means the masses of people have reached the point of disillusionment with the past ways and values. They don't know what will work, but they do know that the prevailing system is self-defeating, frustrating, hopeless. They won't act for change, but they won't strongly oppose those who do. Then the time is ripe for revolution. Does that make sense? Like, basically, reformation is everybody's fed up with the way things are, to the point that if somebody has an idea that's new, even if it's not necessarily the best idea, at least it's new, and they're not going to say, don't try that, right? It gives the seeding the ground for possible new ideas and change, even radical change, is what he's saying. A reformation allows to happen, and a revolution requires that kind of a seeding of disillusionment, right? So again, at the bottom of 19, the masses of people recoil with horror and say, our way is bad and we are willing to let it change, but certainly not for this murderous madness. No matter how bad things are now, they are better than that. This is after like bombings and suicide bombings as an attempt to promote change, right? So they begin to turn back. They regress into the acceptance of a coming massive repression in the name of law and order, right? So we're saying, okay, when people are ready for revolution, don't just start firebombing everything for the love of God, right? At that point, because that will make them like want safety over the new ideas. You have to kind of coax people towards social change by showing how crappy the system is now, and then by offering a revolutionary alternative that doesn't like threaten their very existence or threaten their sense of safety, because like little sheeple lemmings, right, they'll go back inside their little house and say, well, at least in the bad old days I wasn't worried about a pipe bomb going off in my corner, right? So that's what he's criticizing the radicals in the 60s and 70s, like the Weather Underground, who are blowing up government buildings and cafes and stuff, right? He's saying that that's a counterproductive method, because even if people are ready for change, you're going to scare them into the old ways, even though they know it's a bad thing, right? Is that, even if you don't agree with that sentiment, that tactical analysis, retracting what he's saying and what his argument is here, yeah? I mean, I think we see that somewhat playing out after 9/11 and playing out today too, to some extent, right? What do people think? That reactionary environment, I suppose. Any thoughts? You don't have to have. Okay, I was giving an awkwardly long silence in case anybody had something to say. Okay, to finish off the introduction then, right? He talks about how the what was it? The idea that there is always a danger in becoming a radical, right? Great dangers accompany great opportunities. The possibility of destruction is implicit in the act of creation. Thus, the greatest enemy of individual freedom is the individual himself. From the beginning, the weakness as well as the strength of the democratic ideal has been the people. People cannot be free unless they are willing to sacrifice some of their interests to guarantee the freedom of others. Democracy is the ongoing pursuit of the common good by all the people. 135 years ago, de Tocqueville gravely warned that unless individual citizens were regularly involved in the act of governing themselves, self-government would pass from the scene. Citizen participation is the animating spirit and force in a society predicated on volunteerism, right? So he's talking about like what we need to do is to how to mobilize people, right? A community organizer, which Saul Alinsky is his job is to get more people out to vote, more people out to vote for alternatives to the way things are right now. And that's the kind of revolution he's trying to effect and how he's trying to promote change, right? But it's not just like go out and go cast a vote. Every vote counts. We just got to vote better people in, right? He's having tactics now as to how to make that a more, not profitable in money sense, but a more effective undertaking. So we can look at the first chapter now, Rules for Radicals, the Purpose. It's page, I'm not sure, what is it, 819 of the PDF. What follows is for those who want to change the world from what it is to what they believe it should be. The Prince by Machiavelli, right, was written for the haves on how to hold power. Rules for Radicals is written for the have-nots on how to take it away. In this book, we're concerned with how to create mass organizations to seize power and give it to the people, to realize the democratic dream of equality, justice, peace, cooperation, equal and full opportunities for education, full and useful employment, health, and the creation of those circumstances in which man can have the chance to live by values that give meaning to life. We're talking about a mass power organization which will change the world into a place where all men and women walk erect, in the spirit of the credo of the Spanish Civil War. Better to die on your feet than to live on your knees. This means revolution. So how does this sound as an opening to the book? I mean, we had the introduction where he's talking about, okay, don't, go around calling people horrible names and burning flags. It will make it so, people won't listen to you, and that's not good. How do you feel is like the kind of call to arms this beginning paragraph of the book puts out there? Do we like it? Is it attractive? Is it good rhetoric? Or is this something we maybe would want to employ in our final papers or wording kind of like this to like get the reader stoked up about the policy that you're going to propose? We're going to give money to teachers or make everybody wear masks or something in the same kind of like heightened, exciting language? Or is this not actually exciting to anybody but me, this language he's using here? I guess I'm just in there. We have a second for comments or not? Just me? Fair enough. I think it's exciting, kind of like, charging storm the hill kind of language, right? All right. So the significant changes in history have been made by revolutions. There are people who say that it is not revolution, but evolution that brings change. But evolution is simply the term used by non-participants to denote a particular sequence of revolutions as they synthesize into a specific manner of social change. What this means, right, is he's saying that, Trinity, thank you. Cool. Okay, thank you. Well, I'm sure that he or anyone else could probably read it better than I can right now. I kind of have this like dry mouth with a frog in my throat, so I probably sound like I don't know, George Soros reading it or whatever, right? But yes, so he's saying that, so people who say that things are just evolving politically, right? Obama had the quote, right, that history bends towards justice and history bends toward progress, right? The arc of history. And he's saying that may be true from 1,000-mile view, right? And that human beings or political systems evolve into better forms or more equitable forms of those that pre-existed them or predated them. But he's saying that's kind of a lie. He's saying that what people who are not involved in the revolution say is, oh, it evolved. It just got better on its own accord because they want to ignore all the work and pavement pounding and groundbreaking stuff that the revolutionaries who have like putting blood, sweat, and tears in it are doing behind the scenes. So when somebody says political evolution, the system of social justice evolution, right? Alinsky says that's kind of a cop out, but because it doesn't recognize the people who are actually putting skin in the game to make the change for the better happen, right? It also ignores, I think you'd say, that you can go backwards as well as forwards, right? Social change is not always for the best. So he proposes certain observations, propositions, and concepts of the mechanics of mass movements in the various stages of the cycle of action and reaction. He says it's not an ideological book, except insofar as the argument for change is to be called an ideology. Different people in different places, in different situations and times, construct their own solutions and symbols for salvation in these times. The book will not contain any panacea or dogma. I detest fear dogma. I know all revolutions must have ideologies to spur them on, that in the heat of conflict, those ideologies tend to be smelted into rigid dogmas, claiming exclusive possession of truth and the keys to paradise. The keys to paradise is tragic. Dogma is the enemy of human freedom. Dogma must be watched for and apprehended at every turn in the twist of the revolutionary movement. The human spirit glows from that small inner light of doubt, whether we are right, while those who believe with complete certainty that possess the right are dark inside and darken the whole world outside with cruelty, pain, and injustice, right? So he's saying that his methods he's putting out here don't depend on any one ideology or any one political leaning or view or a belief or a cause or a movement or a goal. It's a structure of how to make change in a massive way, regardless of what side you're on. It can be used by libertarians, Republicans, Democrats, Whigs, Federalists, Democratic Republicans, Communists, Socialists, Green Party people in Brazil, in America, in Switzerland. What he's saying, this is a study of the way that change happens through mass movements, is giving a structure or a how-to manual that you can supposedly apply any kind of ideology or change in his schema, and it will show you how to produce good results, right? So he's not saying that he has an ideology that he wants this method to work for. He says it works for all of them. So we'll see if that's true or not. He's afraid of dogma, though, right? Dogma and ideology are similar, but not the same. He says dogma is like the accepting of something as exact, absolute truth, and knowing that you're right and not letting anybody challenge or question you. And he says, like, doubt is what gives human beings a spark and the light in their eye, right? That maybe I could be wrong. Maybe there's something else out there to learn tomorrow. Maybe I don't have it all figured out, right? And he says all the ideologues who have it all figured out or think they do, right? They have their dogma in their head. Like they know that, raising taxes is the best thing for the government always, right? There's no occasion where that's not the case, or that public housing is the best solution to homelessness, right? And they don't listen to anything else, and won't even listen to the potential compromises or alternatives, right? He says there's a deadness to them because their ideology is running their thoughts, right? And there's no freedom in a human mind that does not hear outside opinions and try to improve upon their own worldview because of them, right? There's this quote that Carl Jung, the psychologist who's not relevant to our class, had. He said that it's not that people have ideologies have people. Like ideologies take possession of people and can control them in a way that makes them unapproachable by other people. And this is what he's talking about. He's like, if you're for, minimum wage, mandatory $15 minimum wage, Alinsky says, well, that's great. But don't just close your eyes to everything else in the world and blindly pursue that. You like an antelope, you'll run off a cliff into a car or a barbed wire fence, man. You have to be able to have a goal and still listen to and see other people in order to achieve that goal in a democratic society. So again, dogma makes people dead inside, he says, right? It's the enemy of freedom. All right. Those who enshrine the poor have-nots are as guilty as the other dogmatists who are just as dangerous. To diminish the danger that ideology will deteriorate into dogma and to protect the free, open, questioning, creative-minded man, as well as to allow for change, no ideology should be more specific than that of America's founding fathers at the beginning of the Constitution for the general welfare. So here's an interesting point that he talks about that's kind of a weird or a non-traditionalist reading of the Constitution. For the general welfare is the acting or in the operative clause that allows Congress to legislate for the general welfare, right? In Article 1 of the Constitution, right? And so what happens is, I guess, what's the purpose of legislating, right? Why do we make laws? Let me ask you everybody that. Why do we make laws, and what are our legislators, our representatives supposed to be doing when they're in Congress or whatever? Why do we?
Our interests.
Cool. How are they supposed to do that?
I suppose as Congress themselves are deciding on issues, each representative to have their constituents' views in mind, and they use that to influence how they vote.
Okay. So what do they do though? I mean, yeah, right. How they vote on what? What is it they're voting on usually, or what are they doing when they're in that big ass room together?
I don't know. I don't watch C-SPAN.
Hey, I wouldn't recommend it, man. It'll put you right to sleep. If you have like insomnia, it might put you out, but it might give you nightmares too. Mitch McConnell's pretty scary. Looks like a Halloween mask. Just joking. But so legislators in especially the House, the Senate as well, right? They write and pass laws, legislation, right? Things that make codified ideas that are supposed to protect their constituents or help their constituents or the general welfare, right? They also conduct oversight hearings, right? So Congress has a health intelligence committee that looks to like the government and the military industrial complex intelligence gathering assets and says, hey, you people who are stealing all our data, come in here and tell us why you're doing that and how bad it is, and right? So they have an oversight interest in protecting the people that they represent, but they more or less pass and debate laws and write new ones, right? That's generally what Congress is supposed to be doing. They legislate, right? And so what happens when the general welfare, meaning that things should be done for the good of the people, generally speaking, in Congress, right, isn't really the purpose of Congress, right? If we're like, are the laws that are being passed today or bantered about, or the hearings on, you know, Facebook and Twitter's, election algorithm, get out the vote algorithms, is that encouraging the general welfare?
No, because you're still placing your trust in the beliefs of one person or one or two people. It doesn't, right? It doesn't quantify the various diversity within every thought.
Right, definitely. So you only have people who are appointed to these committees, right, representing the interest of their constituents as opposed to the general constituency of the United States of America, right? You have people in positions of power like the Speaker of the House, the whips, the House leaders of committees, who have massive authority and power, right, and are doing things maybe for their own personal, financial, political, media image benefit than to actually worry about the general welfare of the people. Like, let's look at the COVID. Have you already heard about the COVID relief bill that was going to be passed again? That was going to renew like the unemployment benefits and like extend the Paycheck Relief Act and give more money to small businesses, right? But like, there was no agreement between the Republicans and Democrats, so it never happened and still hasn't. Y'all hear about that, right? At least that it could have. We could have gotten another check at some point in time, right? But we didn't. We all hear. If not, believe me, I'm not lying. Say what?
Conflicts with what should be included in the bill.
Yeah, different private interests or special interests that should be included. The House Democrats wanted more money for individual checks to be cut and more unemployment reimbursement. The Republicans in the Senate wanted a lesser amount, right? Wanted more tax cuts or payroll tax deductions, right? But because of this, right, it wasn't even about the general welfare of the people. It was about political theater, right? Went up there in the House and said, look, the Republicans want to take away all your money and don't want to help you at all. And the reality is, well, they wanted to give people less money, right? But they didn't want no passage of the bill. But everybody on each side gets to say, look, we held this up because they're evil and they're trying to take all away your money and your health care and your everything else. And the other side's saying the same thing about the other party, right? And so no one's concerned necessarily about the general welfare. They're concerned about fundraising for their individual campaigns that are coming up, right? If Pelosi's up there yelling about how evil McConnell is in the Senate, right, then she's going to get a lot of donations from people who know Mitch McConnell is evil or think he is, right, and are supporting her. So she increases her coffers in her private campaign, right, through grandstanding in the public eye after stalling a bill that could have been compromised on, right, and giving people something for the general welfare, right? And so the self-aggrandizement, political theater, and the enrichment of the individual elected officials, right, has become so main stage that it's hard to say the general welfare, quote unquote, is anything but a bargaining chip or a running joke, right? I mean, correct. If somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm trying to be not to be too cynical. I think it's in this issue, at least, it's pretty cynical in reality. But somebody else can give me a different read or disagree, please. Or maybe I'm just too nerdy about the, C-SPAN stuff in general. It doesn't seem anybody's general welfare is served by like divisive speeches about how the other side's not letting us have as much as we want, and then nothing actually gets handed out at all to help with COVID relief, right? At least that's the way I see it. Can somebody who has microphones and can talk? I know I have at least two people. We got Trinity, we got John, we got who else got a microphone? Whoever has a microphone, pull up your PDF of rules for radicals. I'm going to have you read a little half paragraph.
I can read.
Awesome. Let's look at so it's page 21.
20.
All right. So let's read the example of political insensitivity and so-called radicals in the trial of the Chicago 7. So over the weekends, where I would like you to begin, if you could, on page 21. Read that paragraph.
What does it start with? I'm sorry.
Over the weekend, some 150.
Let me see.
Let me make sure it's page. It's the third page of chapter 1, middle of the page exactly. It's page 21 and 196. Yeah. Over the weekend, some 150 lawyers from all parts of the country had gathered in Chicago. Here, I'll read the paragraph. You can read the next one then. Cool, then?
I can read.
Oh, you got it? Okay, you found it?
Cool. Oh, I found it.
Perfect. To pick at the federal building. Go ahead. Take it away.
Wait, me or Trinity?
You go ahead and then pick it up afterwards.
Okay. Over the weekend, some 150 lawyers from all parts of the country had gathered in Chicago to picket the federal building in protest against Judge Hoffman's arrest of the 4 lawyers. This delegation, which was supported by 13 members of the faculty of Harvard Law School, and which included a number of other professors as well, submitted a brief as friend of the court, which called Judge Hoffman's actions a travesty of justice, which threatens to destroy the confidence of the American people and the entire judicial process. By 10 o'clock, the angry lawyers had begun to march around the federal building, where they were joined by hundreds of students, radicals, several Black Panthers, and 100 or more blue-helmeted Chicago police.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Go
ahead. Shortly before noon, about 40 of the picketing lawyers carried their signs into the lobby of the federal building, despite the notice posted on the glass wall beside the entrance and signed by Judge Campbell forbidding such demonstrations within the building. Hardly had the lawyers entered, however, then Judge Campbell himself descended to the lobby, dressed in his black robes and accompanied by a marshal and a stenographer, and his court clerk.
Cool, good. So you great job. I might have somebody else pick up for you there. Great job.
Yep.
Somebody take it from there.
Surrounded by the angry lawyers, who were themselves encircled by a ring of police and federal marshals, the judge proceeded to hold court then and there. He announced that unless the pickets withdrew immediately, he would charge them with contempt. This time he warned that there could be no question that their contempt occurred in the presence of the court and would thus be subject to a summary punishment. No sooner had he made this announcement, however, than a voice from a throng shouted, "Fuck you, Campbell," after a moment of tense silence, followed by a cheer from the crowd and a noticeable stiffening against the police, or among the police. Judge Campbell himself withdrew. Then the lawyers too left the lobby and rejoined pickets on the sidewalk.
Cool. From Jason Epstein's The Great Conspiracy Trial. So then Alinsky argues, right, the picketing lawyers threw away a beautiful opportunity to create a nationwide issue. Offhand, it would seem to have been two choices, either of which would have forced the judge's hand and kept the issues going. Some one of the lawyers could have stepped up to the judge after the voice said, "Fuck you, Campbell," said that the lawyers did not support personal obscenities, but that they were not leaving. Or all the lawyers together could have chorused with one voice, "Fuck you, Campbell." They did neither. Instead, they let the initiative pass from them to the judge and achieved nothing. Radicals must be resilient, adaptable to shifting political circumstances, and sensitive enough to the process of action and reaction to avoid being trapped by their own tactics and forced to travel a road not of their own choosing. In short, radicals must have a degree of control over the flow of events. So we see why, like, in this instance, he's quoting from history, right? So the judge is saying that anybody who protests in this courthouse, which is a American governmental building, right? Free speech. You can protest and assemble anywhere if you're not being violent, right? And all these lawyers who are not, a bunch, well, lawyers, I don't really like lawyers myself, but they're not a bunch of, unwashed masses who've just come from like the strip clubs, right? And are just like walking around smelling of BO and sawdust, right? They're somewhat respectable citizens, or supposedly so, right? And so they're in there picketing in the courthouse they practice law in against this injustice, right? The judge comes down with his lawyers and his police around him, all being, like a tyrant. And someone yells, "Fuck you, Campbell." And at that point in time, the lawyers lost the moral high ground that Campbell was being a fascist, inconsiderate jackass who had no decorum and was not allowing them to be there, though nothing bad was happening on the lawyer's side, right? And so Alinsky says the different things that could have fallen out right was everybody was silent and let Campbell do his crazy stuff and be a jackass and be the bad guy, right? And then they would have still had the advantage without anybody lowering themselves to Campbell's level. Or they could have all said, "Okay, Campbell, you're so bad and so terrible. We're all with one voice going to yell out, 'Fuck you, Campbell.'" And then you have like a unified calling out of the hypocrisy and injustice of Campbell, right? You see what he's saying is that the one individual who spoke that out, and then everybody else lost their courage and just backed away and wasn't there protesting anymore because they felt bad about the bad word that was said and ruined the decorum of the court, right? Legitimized the judge being a tyrant and, trying to bar protesters from his courtroom. Does that make sense what Alinsky's arguing here? Or like how he's arguing that that's important to be aware of, the swirling people around you?
See.
Was that C as in yes, or you see something else that yes, you see?
Yes.
Okay. I was gonna say, I thought you were gonna say like, well, see, it's not quite how. All right, yeah. See, Doc, comrade. Have a saw in Arabic. All right. So he proposes to present an arrangement of facts and general concepts of change to sweep toward a science revolution, right? All right, let's look at the middle of the next page. Once the American Revolution was done with, we can find very little besides the right of revolution that is laid down in the Declaration of Independence as a fundamental right. 73 years later, Thoreau's brief essay, The Duty of Civil Disobedience, followed by Lincoln's reaffirmation of the revolutionary right in 61. There are many phrases extolling the sacredness of revolution, that is, revolutions of the past. Our enthusiasm for the sacred right of revolution is increased and enhanced with the passage of time. The older the revolution, the more it recedes in history, the more sacred it becomes. Except for Thoreau's limited remarks, our society has given us few words of advice, few suggestions on how to fertilize social change. Right? From the Hams, on the other hand, there have been an unceasing flood of literature justifying the status quo. Religious, economic, social, political, legal tracts endlessly attack all revolutionary ideas and action for changes and more fallacious and against God, country, and mother. The literary sedations, he says, right? So this is what Solzhenitsyn's talking about too, right? In the Exhaustion of the West. Anybody with revolutionary or new ideas that doesn't fit the media's narrative or the way things are going, and the echo chamber that's produced in the intellectual elite and the political ruling class in the country will be forgotten, blackballed, thrown away, whatever, right? Like nobody's going to give him a time of day or cover his words in the media or disseminate his words to the country, right? I think he's saying the same kind of thing, not only by, in the 60s and 70s and 80s, even today, some media putting out, "Oh, things have been way worse in the past. Things are great right now. It's not that bad. It's only one or two bad apples, one or two bad things, right? It's nothing to worry about." That makes the status quo seem better than it is and discourages change. By the same way that Alinsky's talking here about, they put out, well, it's bad to question authority or buck the status quo or to, argue with your teachers about whatever in school. I mean, I'm not obviously of that mind, but Leave It to Beaver days, right? Gee, Wally, I don't know. Maybe 2 + 2 isn't 5. Shut up, Beaver. He'll beat you with a ruler, right? That kind of old TV sitcom stuff that was going on reinforced the status quo in the same kind of narrative, right? So literary seditions to the status quo include the threat, since all movements are unpatriotic, subversive, and spawn in hell and the reptilian in their creeping insidiousness. Dire punishments will be meted out to their supporters. All great revolutions, including Christianity, the various reformations, democracy, capitalism, socialism, have suffered these epitaphs in the times of their birth. The status quo, concerned about its public image, revolution is the only force which has no image, but casts a dark, ominous shadow of things to come. Right. So we're saying anything that's revolutionary, whether it was like the Romans, right? When Christianity was a new thing, Christ, around 0 BC for 1 AD, crucified. Oh, I guess 33 or 31 AD, he supposedly crucified, right? Either way, Rome was the country that was running the world. The empire of Rome was huge. You had Caesar, Augustus, you had, different governors, and basically the whole Mediterranean into Eurasia and Europe and all the way to Ireland was Roman controlled, right? Well, the Christians were the revolutionaries, and they eventually, ideologically and through conversion and through other economic means, like the Roman Empire is not around anymore. The Christians and the Catholics through like the Middle Ages, right, and the Byzantine and Roman empires, the Roman Catholic Church, right, and the Vatican have lasted for much longer than the Roman Empire under Julius Caesar, Caesar Augustus, right? So they, in the beginning times, right, the Christians were a threat to the Roman way of power because they were different. They had different ideas, priorities, rules they followed. They wanted change. They wanted change from the old law and the material monetary policies into a different ethic, right? So they were cast as ominous shadow. The Christians can't trust them, right? They'll come and ruin the world, right? Same thing with democracy, right? You go from in European countries, the king is the enacted, anointed representation of God on earth, or the aristocracy, the knights who own everything, the land, right? It's all by the feudal lords and their vassals, and the men at arms and the dirt farmers, right? And so like when these systems were challenged, like, okay, a peasant should have a vote. My God, that's a crazy idea. That's a democratic idea, right? When socialism comes about, everybody's like, oh, the socialists, right? That's the new thing. It's terrible, right? He's saying that anything that's revolutionary will be cast as a shadow of ominous, evil, reptilian, satanic intention, because it's just unknown, right? Like, what's the thing that man fears the most is the unknown, right? Socrates says right before he dies, he's like, y'all are stupid for fearing death, because any of y'all ever died before? Well, no. So you know what death is like? No, you don't. Well, you could be great then. Death could be the best thing ever. It could be like puppies and sunshines and ice cream cones and orange soda and I don't know what's somebody's favorite music, and Dierks Bentley playing concerts live 24/7. That might be hell for other people. I don't know, but right, you don't know what it is, so how can you be so afraid of it, right? And Alinsky is pointing out here that since it's what's new and unknown, and the change is not manifest, everyone casts it as the worst thing that's ever happened and is scared to death of the revolutionary new thought and movement, right? All right. So we'll go ahead and stop the Alinsky lecture and discussion there for today. Let's look real quick at the evidence sheet. I think I put one up. I'll put one in this chat too. There's one on the announcements on the course site. Evidence sheet. Cool. I'm going to just copy and paste it into this little.
Will you return next week?
So what?
Are you returning next week?
I will be. I will be back probably tomorrow at some point in time, or on Saturday. So this is the last team's freaking debacle thing ever. We'll be in person as always. I like so much in person much better. I've been freaking stranded on the road in Colorado with a broken car and a 1-year-old son. It's been a trying time, but we get it. We got through it, and the car works again, so I can at least go to Starbucks or whatever in the meantime. All right, so let me freaking post this up here. I'm gonna copy and paste the file to the chat box. Hopefully y'all can access it and download it, okay? Okay. I can't find the document. So file, save as, desktop, jackass. Thank you. Now I should be able to go to desktop, right? And it should be right there. And it may or may not be. So here's an example. What this is an example of an evidence sheet filled out for a past student's public policy proposal they've allowed me to use. And you can see everything that's entailed in that. We already went through it, right, with the Solzhenitsyn article, and filled it out as an example. So what I want y'all to be doing right now is find one source between now and Tuesday that you think can be the first source for your public policy. So if you're looking at marijuana policy, go to Brookings or Cato and Google their public policy briefs on what the current public policy for legality of marijuana or whatever your policy is, right? And then go to the federal code, which will have links to, right? The federal criminal code for marijuana usage or marijuana possession, right, is accessible through the Library of Congress. Just what are the laws about marijuana's illegality right now? What are the punishments on a federal level, et cetera? Like, what is the current situation about the policy that you want to write about, right? Go to the federal code, look for laws regarding abortion, laws regarding immigration, laws about public domain, copyright law, whatever it is that you're interested, immigration, whatever it is you're interested in doing for your policy or your chosen topic, right? Child sex trafficking, find what the current federal laws are regarding that. And then from there, that's what we'll fill out your first evidence sheet with, most likely. And I'm trying to show you how to, if I can find this damn sheet. How is it not? I just saved it to the desktop and it's not there. I hate Teams. I hate not being in person. I'm fussy and pouty now. Sorry. That's just on there. Okay, one last time with feeling now. There it is. Thank God. Okay, it's loading now. Boom. Y'all can see the evidence sheet. So this is a past student of mine had done this. Here it's all filled out and fleshed out nicely. Cool. So we're gonna fill it out in class on Monday. So you don't have to fill it out this weekend, right? But I want you to find the source that you're gonna do the evidence sheet on in class on Monday. Okay, we'll fill out together and make sure it's all right. But come to class on Monday or Tuesday, with knowing which source you're going to use for your first evidence sheet, so we can pull it up and look at it together and give instruction and pointers on how to make it fit all the criteria. Does that make some sense? What I'm asking you to, or hopefully good sense what I'm asking you to do. Don't worry about printing an evidence sheet out. This is just an example so you can be aware of what's coming. Find the first source you want to use for your research paper. Federal statute is good. Either Brookings or Cato, the sites I showed you, are good for finding your first sources. It doesn't have to be anything. I'm not requiring it to be one or the other, but find something on the topic you want that you think is a good source for your paper. You don't have to print it out, but at least have the URL and the text or the PDF or the screenshot of it accessible that you can show me on Tuesday, and we can proceed with making sure that that is, in fact, a good source and a properly researched step for you to take. Is that clear as mud? So the thing in the chat box, right, is an example of a properly completed evidence sheet from way back when, right? That works just fine. That's an A quality evidence sheet. The assignment's not to do that. But that's just an example of what we're going to do in class. The assignment is find me a source for your policy paper that come Tuesday, we can plug it in an evidence sheet that will look just like that one by the time class is over on Tuesday. I'm seeing some sures and yeses, and that's making my heart smile. Any confusions or WTFs or frowns, grimaces, chagrins? All right, cool. Any questions? The group me, y'all have access to the class group me, right? You can hit me up on the group me. If you have any questions of anything, and I'm still gone, I'll be there on Tuesday. I swear to you, on my life, on my honor, on my now functioning clutch in my car. I'll be in class on Tuesday, and we can get back to normal, y'all. I'm sorry this has been a trying time for everyone. If there's nothing else, I'll go ahead and end this. If anybody has any questions or anything, open your mic and say it, or just we can fade slowly away.
Bye. Have a nice day.
Oh, there you go. Thank you. Thank you for ending it on a good note. Take care, Kayla. Y'all have a great weekend too. Be safe this weekend, y'all. Don't do anything I wouldn't. Well, just be safe.
I'll pray for your clutch.
Yeah, I mean, it's in now. Pray for my credit card balance, really.
Got it. Mine too. Bye.
Take care, y'all.